What were you doing at age 6? Learning to tie your shoes? Maybe mastering your multiplication tables? Well, imagine being handed a crown, a country, and the power to command armies before you even knew how to spell queen. This isn't a fairy tale. These are real girls, real rulers, who sat on thrones while most of us were still playing hopscotch. Today we're counting down the top 5 youngest queens in history, and their stories, full of war, betrayal, forbidden love, and unbelievable courage. Let's begin, from bold to downright jaw-dropping. Our countdown starts in the tropical heart of Tahiti. In 1827, a 14-year-old girl named Imada was crowned Queen Pōmare IV of Tahiti, after the sudden death of her 6-year-old brother Pōmare III. She didn't ask for the throne. Her younger brother died unexpectedly, and suddenly the crown was hers. Almost immediately after taking power, she had to defend her island paradise from French colonizers who were hungry for control. The French arrived, demanding land, control, and religious conversion, but Pōmare didn't back down. She resisted colonization for years, even waging guerrilla warfare from the mountains. She gave birth to 10 children while fighting an empire, retreating to the mountains and organizing guerrilla resistance. Imagine being pregnant and planning military strategy. She ruled 50 years longer than Queen Victoria. Though Tahiti was eventually declared a French protectorate in 1847, Pōmare fought tooth and nail to preserve her people's rights, land, and cultural identity. Her resistance became legendary in Polynesian history. Queen by accident, legend by choice. Next, we travel to Sweden, where 6-year-old Christina inherited the throne in 1632 after her father died in battle. Christina of Sweden became queen in 1632 at just 6 years old, after her father, King Gustavus Adolphus, was killed in battle during the 30 Years' War. While most children her age were learning how to spell their names, Christina was being groomed to rule a nation. And not like a princess, like a prince. She wore pants instead of gowns. She rode horses and practiced sword fighting. She studied philosophy, Greek, Latin, and politics. She held deep conversations with scholars and intellectuals. And she absolutely refused to marry, once calling the idea of having children disgusting. By the time she was 18, her royal court had become one of the most intellectually vibrant centers in all of Europe. She brought in artists, philosophers, scientists, even René Descartes, the French philosopher famous for saying, "I think, therefore I am." He came to her court and died there during the cold Swedish winter. But Christina didn't stop at shocking her court with ideas. In 1654, at just 27, she dropped a royal bombshell. She abdicated the throne, gave it all up, left the Swedish crown jewels behind and walked away. She then left Sweden, converted to Catholicism, and moved to Rome, a bold, controversial move in the Protestant world. Once in Rome, she made headlines again by publicly kissing the Pope's slipper as a symbol of her faith. When she died in 1689, the Catholic Church gave her a royal funeral and buried her in St. Peter's Basilica, a holy site usually reserved for popes and male cardinals, not Protestant-born queens. And there were whispers, rumors that she had been in a romantic relationship with her lady-in-waiting named Ebba Spar. She never married, by choice, and lived life entirely on her own terms, brilliant, unmarried, unapologetic. Christina ruled on her own terms and left history shook. Our next queen ascended the throne at just 10 years old in 1890, ruling the Netherlands during one of the darkest times in history. By the time she was 10 years old, Wilhelmina of the Netherlands had inherited more than just a crown. She inherited a fragile nation teetering on the edge of change. Her father, King William III, had died, and her mother, Queen Emma, stepped in as regent until Wilhelmina came of age. But when Wilhelmina finally took the throne, she ruled like a storm cloaked in velvet. Then came World War II. When Nazi Germany invaded her country, Wilhelmina was forced to flee to London. But she didn't hide. She didn't wait. She fought back with words. She broadcasted coded messages from London over radio waves, reaching Dutch resistance fighters deep in the occupied Netherlands. Her voice became a symbol of resistance for her occupied homeland. Her defiance was so powerful that Hitler himself once called her the only man in the Dutch government. And she owned it, wearing that insult like a royal badge of honor. She would go on to reign for 58 years, surviving 2 world wars, 4 assassination attempts, and the crippling blows of a global depression. She was more than a monarch. She She was a wartime commander wrapped in royal grace. And behind the crown, some wild truths. Wilhelmina was one of the wealthiest women in Europe, holding more than $500 million in gold reserves during the Second World War. She once openly criticized Winston Churchill, challenging his stubbornness. Yet the two shared a deep, mutual respect. And while dictators fell around her, she endured. She outlived Hitler, Mussolini, and even Stalin. Through it all, she remained a symbol of dignity and steel, grace under fire, power in pearls. Don't scroll now. Number 2's royal scandal shook all of Europe. From child queen to tabloid nightmare. You're going to want to hear this. In 1833, 3-year-old Isabella became Queen of Spain. Yes, just 3 years old after her father, King Ferdinand VII, rewrote centuries-old laws just to ensure his daughter could inherit the throne, and to block his own brother from taking the crown. But not everyone was celebrating. Spain's elite were furious. Her uncle Carlos claimed the throne should be his, and what followed was a brutal civil war, the infamous Carlist Wars, which tore through the nation for decades. Isabella was thrust into a world of bloodshed and betrayal before she was even old enough to read. By 13, she was married off to her cousin Francisco, a man who not only avoided her but was widely believed to be gay and openly avoided her even on their wedding night. The marriage quickly became a national scandal. Within months, the royal palace turned into a circus of scandal, with whispers of affairs with generals, priests, and even opera singers. But things got darker. In 1856, a man stabbed her in the side with a dagger during a public procession, screaming "Death to the Queen." She survived the assassination attempt, but the attack shook the nation and left her increasingly paranoid. She was blamed for everything, from corruption to bankrupting the economy, and called Isabella de los Tristes Destinos, which translates to Isabella of the Sad Fates. Her court was described as a brothel with a crown. Through it all, Isabella tried to lead a fractured country, but Spain continued to spiral. In 1868, after years of instability, she was finally overthrown during the Glorious Revolution and forced into exile to France, leaving behind a legacy tangled in controversy. But the royal plot twist? Her son, Alfonso XII, would one day reclaim the throne and against all odds, become one of Spain's most beloved kings. Isabella's reign wasn't a fairy tale, it's Game of Thrones, with a side of scandal, sabotage, and a stab wound. Topping our list is a queen who wore the crown before she could even open her eyes. Mary, Queen of Scots, was born on December 8, 1542. Just 6 days later, her father, King James V of Scotland, died, devastated by a humiliating defeat at the Battle of Solway Moss, and reportedly heartbroken that his newborn heir was a girl. With his death, infant Mary became Queen of Scotland, cradled more by politics than by parents. Fearing instability and English threats, Mary was sent to France at age 5 to be raised in the French royal court. At 15, she married the Dauphin Francis, heir to the French throne. A year later, when Francis became King Francis II, Mary briefly held 2 crowns, Queen of Scotland and Queen Consort of France. But her fairy tale quickly unraveled. Her young husband died at the age of 16. Heartbroken and politically vulnerable, she returned to Scotland in 1561, a French-educated Catholic queen stepping into a kingdom now ruled by fiery Protestant reformers. At 22, she married her cousin Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley, a union meant to strengthen her claim to the English throne. Months later, Darnley himself was murdered, his house blown up and his body found strangled in a nearby garden. The prime suspect, James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, a man Mary shockingly married just weeks later. Whether coerced in love or politically desperate, the scandal destroyed her reputation. Many believed Mary had conspired in her husband's murder. The scandal deepened when she married the prime suspect. Scotland turned on her. Imprisoned, forced to abdicate, and fearing for her life, she fled to England, hoping her cousin Queen Elizabeth I would offer protection. But Elizabeth saw a rival, not a refugee, and locked Mary away for 19 years. In 1586, Mary was implicated in the Babington Plot, a conspiracy to assassinate Elizabeth and place Mary on the throne. Whether she was actively involved or framed remains debated, but the outcome was deadly. On February 8, 1587, Mary was led to the scaffold in Fotheringhay Castle dressed in scarlet red, the color of Catholic martyrdom. The execution itself was botched. It took several gruesome swings to sever her head. Afterward, her loyal dog was found hiding in her skirts, refusing to leave her side. Yet her story didn't end there. Her son, James VI of Scotland, would go on to unite the crowns of England and Scotland, fulfilling the royal destiny she never could. From infant queen to tragic martyr, Mary's life was a storm of betrayal, power, and legend, a royal drama for the ages. These girls weren't just playing dress-up, they were running countries, before they lost their baby teeth. From guerrilla warriors to queens in exile, they faced invasions, revolutions, assassinations, and heartbreak, all before they were old enough to drive a car. So the next time someone says heavy is the head that wears the crown, remember these young royals? Their crowns weren't fairy tales, they were forged in fire. Which queen's story blew your mind the most? Drop it in the comments, and hit that subscribe button for more jaw-dropping history from mysterious anecdotes every week.